Hey everyone, I'm your host Yoshino. Welcome to another exciting episode of Artist Decoded. My guest for today is singer-songwriter, guitarist, and visual artist Emma Ruth Rundle. We talk about her newest project entitled Dowsing Voice, which is an experimental album that she recorded in Wales that is also accompanied by a visual art project. She's currently on a European tour with Chelsea Wolfe. Tour dates and ticket information can be found on her website, emmaruthrundle.com. We covered a lot of ground in this episode. We talked about a few of Emma's favorite artists, including but not limited to Henry Darger, to singer-songwriter Sybil Bayer, to writer Olivia Lang. But all of the artists, the films, and artworks that we talk about in this episode can be found in the show notes as well. We also explore ideas surrounding the importance of an artist's role in a modern-day context, finding one's flow state, and the rest you'll have to wait for in the episode. But before we begin, please go to our iTunes page, click on that review, or you can go to our Spotify page where it's really easy to leave us a review. You just have to go on there, click that 5 stars, and it's over and done with. I also want to remind everyone that we are an independently operated podcast. Any support would greatly help. I personally love doing these interviews. It fuels a lot of my creative output and my soul needs, but it also takes a lot of time and effort to create these episodes. We have one tier on our Patreon, which is a $5 per month tier. It gives you access to uncut interviews, access to currently unreleased episodes, Patreon exclusive videos, advice for artists, and a lot of other Patreon exclusive content. So if you'd like to support our efforts in creating the show, you can go to patreon.com/artistdecoded. This next track is called Return off of Emma's album, Engine of Hell, followed by our conversation. Hope you all enjoy it.
To me.
So what you leave for tour on was it June 6th?
I'm leaving on Saturday, actually. So that would be June 4th.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Cool. And what's the first destination?
Wellington, New Zealand.
That's awesome. Is this your first time in New Zealand?
No, I actually used to live in Wellington for
Oh,
a
you did.
little, yeah, for just under a year. Um,
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
yeah, it was kind of like almost 15 years ago, I think.
Hmm.
It was a long time ago, and I haven't been back since. So
Yeah.
it's, I was getting kind of emotional today in my rehearsal. I'm hopefully going to see some people I haven't seen in a long time, and it'll be a joyous reunion.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds really cool. And I remember listening to a podcast when you were being interviewed and you were talking about being relatively nomadic. And I think you were speaking about using piano for Engine of Hell and how you grew up. I think you started playing piano when you were 12. Is that right?
No, I've had access to a piano through my father since I was born. So I don't know that you would call, I don't know when it's like decidedly playing,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
bashing on it counts.
That could count.
I had ambitions to play from a young age, I guess.
Hmm.
I think that I could more say that I started playing guitar at age 12.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah.
So I guess living in Wellington was part of one of those nomadic experiences.
Yeah, it was. I was going to Cal Arts. I think it was in 2005 or six, and I dropped out and moved to Wellington, New Zealand, with a friend who was traveling. I called her my wife, and she was from New Zealand. She was in the States traveling around going to music festivals, and we met and just hit it off and became fast friends. And I guess the idea was that I would return to school, but I didn't. So,
Mm. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a great experience. I really think that that time there, leaving school and living with her there in Wellington, that was like where I did a lot of woodshedding on my instrument as an adult and kind of became more of a serious guitarist, I guess. Like I left art school and committed to playing an instrument more seriously
Mm.
because I had been studying, music tech, which is, like composition and programming and all this stuff that requires electricity.
Yeah. That makes
Uh,
sense.
yeah, enough computers crashing on stage and just, I don't know, didn't want to live in screens. There's an immediacy to like playing guitar that just is satisfying. Similarly with the piano. So
Mm.
I went away, lived there, and did that, focused on guitar.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. It seems like you're very much in tune to these sort of visceral experiences or visceral connections with playing music. And also, I see that in your visual art. And I think I heard you talking about some sort of attraction to the like outsider art. Is that right? And
I
I
do.
kind of,
I do have I'm interested in outsider art.
yeah.
I guess could you elaborate on that? Do you want me to talk about outsider art or?
No, I mean, I guess just I'm trying to string together these connections between your visual art and like your music. And I
Mm.
see that there's like a thread in terms of like how instinctual you are and also how honest you are with especially your music. I feel like you traverse through these different landscapes and it feels like an honest expression.
I think that's could be said to be, I guess, my mission statement, if you or our artist
Yeah.
statement is especially through music, as I've gotten older and closer to understanding what it is that I am doing, I think that setting out to generate honest music is at the core of fundamentally what it is from my experience. And it's an easy stance because I am the ultimate authority on my experience. And I think
Yeah.
I was attracted to outsider art because it's so disconnected from educate like having an education or understanding the context of art. It just seems to be like derived purely from an instinctive place.
Hmm.
I'm thinking really specifically about Henry Darger.
Hmm.
There's something about the separateness and disconnected nature of some of this work. I realize now not all outsider artists are disconnected from a community, but they're not pontificating the meaning of anything in a classroom. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I wish that I had more of an education in art.
Hmm.
The best I can do is be reading books, but there's a documentary about him too. I don't know how I feel about. There's definitely been like marketing that's happened after this person left the planet Earth. You
Yeah.
know, art people stumbled on his work and figured out how to market it to hipsters like me and make a
Yeah.
lot of money off of his life. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think what he did was beautiful, and when I was talking about outsider art, I think that was kind of a good example of what about it was fascinating and inspiring to me.
Hmm. Have you ever heard of Maya Ruznic?
I don't think so. Let me look it up.
You can find her on Instagram. She's also been on the podcast a couple of
Okay.
times, but um, I really feel like you would like her work in
Okay.
particular.
Wow. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, I was just looking at. I mean, you mentioned outsider art, and then just looking at your work, your visual artwork, and then just you bringing up Henry Darger right now. I just thought that I just made the connection that you might really like her work.
I think that I guess at a certain point in my life when I was younger, I kind of identified as an outsider artist. And as I get older and I educate myself more, I realize that that's just not the case. Like I can't claim any kind of connection or can't claim that title. I'm too, I've spent a lifetime in the community of artists and dedicated to having a career as an artist. I mean, my whole entire desk is full of art and visual perception, ways of seeing. This book
Yeah.
is an essential reading for any artist. I'm not an
Mm.
outsider artist. Is that would be a lie.
Mm. Have you ever heard of Vivian Maier, the
Mm-hmm.
photographer?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she's definitely someone that I would consider not stylistically necessarily, but I mean, she was a nanny, I believe,
She was, yeah.
her entire life. And then I think one of her relatives or something, stumbled upon her negatives or photographs. And then,
Yeah, the documentary about her is also that's great.
yeah, 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 there's something, I don't know, there's something fascinating about that.
I don't know. I guess we'd have to really consider what the definition of outsider art is. As I've gotten older, I understand that it is really people that don't have art education and don't aren't connected to like an academic setting.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what I think it is too. Like that sort of
But I feel
naivety.
that in her, like in that documentary, I don't know. I guess people have an artistic eye. It's very clear that she's wandering the city with those kids and she's examining, what are the window displays and
Hmm.
the arrangement. There's an aesthetic language in the world that she's tuned into.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the extent of her education was. I don't remember.
Yeah. I'm not sure either, but her name just kind of like popped up in my head as we were talking about this stuff.
You're an amazing photographer.
Oh, thanks. No, I appreciate that. That's
Did you
really
go to art
nice.
school?
So you're gonna flip the script on me
We're
right now?
having a conversation.
No, I know. I'm just messing with you. No, I didn't go to art school. I actually went to business school. I went to Cal State Long Beach and I
Okay.
studied business because in my early 20s, I just didn't really know what to do. But I had picked up a camera when I was 18 and I was just shooting. And I immediately knew that I wanted to be a photographer. And like, I suppose, like most people who are starting their artistic journey, for lack of a better term, it's, I don't know. I look back at those photos and I'm sure you can see this in your music too. It's like you look back at some of your old music or something and you're like, oh wow, this is really bad. Or you know what I mean? Like because that's just, I guess maybe I'm just projecting because that's my experience when I look at my old photographs, you know. There's like this sort of like you can see yourself in it. It's like a window to a permanence of the past.
Yeah.
But then it's also like I don't know. I always think about this thing of I just as a joke, more or less, like the pre-career retrospective. Like if you like showed everyone your
Oh my
work from
God.
like before you consider yourself a quote unquote artist, you know what that would look like. I always thought that'd be fascinating. Like, what does that look like for like Francis Bacon or like, you know,
Oh my God. I'm so obsessed with Francis Bacon
really?
right now.
That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me.
Yes. But yeah, exactly. Well, I think with him, we can kind of know what it looks like. But yeah, that would be an interesting podcast. You could just get or a series. You could get artists to show early demos and early sketches and things, formative years. There's an artist I've been following on online who's been recently doing that, like showing their early work and kind of as an encourage as a way of
Mm.
encouraging people who are starting. I mean, like, look, this is not we're not born into this world being
Yeah.
masters of our craft. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into forming and shaping the skills and then also developing identity as an artist, which takes time and requires life experience for most people. There are always going to be geniuses who are born or come into being who have this, for some reason, just tapped in,
Yeah.
right? But I do think that is interesting. I listened to some of my older music this morning as I'm preparing to go back to
Mm.
Wellington, where I sort of started to really shape my identity as a guitarist and a songwriter. And I don't know that I'd call the music bad, but it's certainly not what I'm doing now, and it's not. Uh, I can hear that I'm finding myself still. I mean, maybe that's a thing that happens forever. Maybe we will be artists later in life and look back on this stage and say, I really haven't figured it out yet, and I'm still, leaning on my influences so much, and wow, the technicianship is just not there. I listen to my dad, and he talks about his piano playing. I mean, the guy is a master. He's 70 years old, and he just intuits this incredibly advanced and
Mm.
beautiful music. But as soon as he stops playing, he just begins to criticize his chops, his technique, his da da da. And it's just like, man, at what point do you stop striving to improve some aspect of what you're doing and accept what it is? I guess it depends on what your goals are. But when I listen to him, I imagine that his goal is just to get into a flow
Mm.
state so that the thinking goes away. Because that's my goal as an artist for my own practice, why
For
I'm
sure.
compelled to do it. Because doing it, being in the act of creating, the self gets like,
For
sublimated or
sure. Yeah.
whatever.
I mean, that's God, it's like I mean, I hate to bring up like conversations about social media, but it's kind of like this weird I don't know if you struggle with this, but just like the idea,
I
yeah,
think we
just
all
this
do.
idea of like self-promotion and everything. It's just like so I don't know. I don't even really want to go there to be honest, but
That's okay. We can skip it. I think
yeah,
there's an
yeah, there's a
understanding with artists, musicians, and just people that there's some aspect of it that's rewarding and there's some aspect of it that's necessary. And there's a huge piece of it that's like could be called quote unquote
Mm.
evil or corruptive to
For
our
sure, for sure.
essence.
And no, no,
Corrosive.
I agree. And someone that you brought up on another podcast I was listening to you on, this musician Sybil Bayer.
Oh yeah.
My God. I mean, like, I was listening to her in the car the other day, and I'm like, just so she's so poetic, and I forget exactly what. And this is just kind of like the idea of like outsider art too, or like that naive sort of approach, because I think she was just a parent and she was like experimenting with her guitar, but she has this beautiful voice, um and perhaps I'm romanticizing her life a bit, you know.
Well, that's part of it.
Totally, totally. But I think, I don't know, it's just an interesting contrast, because she was talking about something about like like preparing dinner or something like that on one track, and then
Yeah.
on another track, she's talking about the essence of love, and like I feel like it was like losing yourself in love or something like that. Is that correct?
There's one song called Forget About
Forget about.
that,
That's it.
yeah, that's just, it is about the purity of love and how in that love, I don't think she ever uses the word love, and it's not like, but her singing about you make me forget about,
Oh yeah.
I think she says past and pain or something. It's just really beautiful, and the naivety of it is I think that we can buy these artists and we let them into ourselves. Someone like that, also someone for me is like Nick Drake, because of this like
Mm-hmm.
mythology that surrounds them. There's like the tragedy with him, with her. She's not trying to sell anything.
Yeah.
She's not trying to sell any product necessarily. As far as we know, I had someone in LA not super long ago say that they personally knew that some of these rediscovered albums from the 60s and 70s
Uh-huh.
were not authentic. They didn't disclose which ones, but it definitely planted a seed in my mind of, let's just pretend that doesn't exist. But
Yeah.
Sybil Bayer is so disarming because of that purity. It's like there's no ulterior motives. There is no ego or self-promotion. This person is literally just generating something
Mm.
beautiful simply because. And I think that is what I love about outsider art. It's like it has to be done for this person, even if no one else ever sees or hears it.
Yeah.
God, you just think about like how much amazing work there is on the planet that we'll never even know about.
Mm. Something that I've been thinking about a lot recently is just this idea of self-expression, but getting past the idea of self-expression and creating something that's more relevant to like the collective consciousness, but not in a way where you're contriving it, but something that just like is so true to you, that seeps out, that it just resonates in that way. I guess so, let me speak more specifically. Like I've been reading Joan Didion, and I've been reading Margaret Atwood, and just the way that they express themselves. I mean, I read Joan Didion's book, The Year of Magical Thinking, which is just so brutally honest, and in the writing you can feel her grieving process, right? And I don't know. I think it's just that flow that we're talking about, and being so tapped into like your own process that it just kind of like pours out of you, and not being as like self-conscious about things. I guess those are just some kind of things that are resonating with me right now.
Mm. Yeah, I haven't read that book. It's on the list.
Mm.
Um, I think, okay, so you said a couple things I'm interested in. So I think there's the idea of self-editing, the critic of the, like, your own critic that can
Mm.
sometimes hamper productivity ultimately.
For
But
sure.
there's also something you were saying about not social commentary, not being political, but did you say tapping into the
Yeah, the collective consciousness.
collective
Yeah.
consciousness? I think that like we are so there's like a language and understanding that we're so ingrained with, like growing up in California, or you're the culture that we
Yeah.
come from on planet Earth at this time, right? Like that whatever we do is going to be somewhat tied to that because we aren't separate from it. Like we are a product of it just inherently by being, not being raised in a bubble in space, like the 2001 baby. I wonder about that kind of thing too. And, what does it mean as you become self-aware as an artist? What is the responsibility of the artist and time and as a member of the human race in times like these, as an American, da 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 da.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't view myself, I'm not political. I'm not a political artist, but I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts ruminating. I just read Everybody by Olivia Lang, and it's just really fucked me up.
Really? What's it about?
Well, it says it's a book about freedom, but I think it's kind of defining what freedom is not. And it's not like freedom, America. It's a lot about bodies, like life in bodies, controlling of bodies, what your body, will dictate about how you maneuver through the world, what access you have to identity, resources, agency, and society. She has a really interesting way of writing and sort of chapter by chapter, her style. She focuses on different thinkers and different artists. I've read all of her books. She's so amazing. She wrote this book called Trip to Echo Spring about alcoholic writers so every chapter is about, there's like a Hemingway, Fitzgerald, and Tennessee Williams chapter. But this new book, I think, is like her greatest achievement, and it's definitely very poignant and about these times. It's interesting. I highly recommend it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll definitely read it. I'm in a huge reading mode as of recent. So what's Olivia Lang, and what's the name of the book again?
The book is called Everybody.
Everybody. Okay, that's a pretty easy one to remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So she writes mostly nonfiction, and it's the way she uses language is super beautiful and interesting. So it's pretty effortless to just get through her stuff really quickly too. Let me know if you like it. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
But as an artist reading that, it definitely makes me think a lot about what our role is in society. And
yeah,
I don't know whether it's enough to just be venting these like intense, personal, confessional sort of moments. I don't know. That's, I think, what I've been doing in my music more than the visual art stuff has been about escape and fantasy a little bit more, like with the Dowsing Voice stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Building of worlds in which we can escape to.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even the album feels like that too. And I wrote a little note for myself right here about the way that Dowsing Voice made me feel when I was listening to it.
Okay. Let's hear it.
If I read it to you?
Yeah, please do.
I put, some sort of feral creature that turned into an angelically possessed demon was trying to enter inside my body through my ear canals.
Perfect. That's great.
I was like, this is what it kind of feels like. And so I just kind of wrote that down. But I mean, yeah, tell me about the creation of both the visual artwork and the music.
Okay. Yeah, I can tell you about the process. I guess lately I've been so interested in like what motivates us, and I think I've had a really intense lack of self-awareness about why I do things until people have started asking. And I've been reading books like this that make me really wonder where does my work sit in the world and why is it valid? And then trying to go back and examine, like, why would I make an album like this? Where does that come from? Like, what about where we are as a culture and society would come to the recipe that makes something like that happen? Because there's no way to be separate from all that stuff. Anyway, for me, I can say that I had an independent will to go create this work. I was coming off of touring as a band for years.
Yeah.
I was coming off of a lot of like heavy drinking, and just that the repetition of being on tour does something that I think is slightly damaging to spontaneity and creativity, because you're repeating the mantras of your music, saying the same thing over and over again. Not that every city is the same, not that every audience is the same, but there's something samey about it to our brain, right?
Yeah.
So by doing that, it stops the part that wants to keep growing and sprouting out, because we're like, we're not doing that right now. We're doing this other thing. And so after doing years of that, it not only like kind of hampered my creative process, but it also added to like psychological armor, physical armor. I wasn't really able to feel things in a way that in an authentic way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so much of what I have my work hinges on still is like a potent emotional quality.
Yeah, I could see that.
And I felt that I was blocked from it. I wasn't able to access that vulnerable state. I'd lost my voice, if you will, like my access to the source. So I went to Wales by myself to escape my relationship, to escape America, to escape my environment and my routine, and get in touch with what I have had. I've had experiences there in the west coast of the United Kingdom that I would kind of call vaguely spiritual. I feel there's something about the landscape that I feel affected by. I like thinking about that thousands of years ago, some, random druid I'm related to was like throwing some shit off a cliff. I don't know, without taking myself too seriously, because there has to be some playful element to it as well.
For sure.
Which was another thing about this work, that like it was a release. There was some playing happening, right? Something about the childlike mind needed to be re-engaged to want it to come out and work. Like no one wants an artist has to have some of that, I think, to be productive.
You know what's really interesting is I don't know if you're familiar with this artist, Phil Hale. Are you familiar with him?
Oh my God, he's been one of my favorite painters for over 20 years.
Okay, he's incredible. So like
he's a master, and wow.
Yeah. So basically, I remember the first time when I met him in person, so this was early on in the podcast, like in 2016, when I was trying to figure out how to interview people. But so if you go back and listen to it, I'm sorry. But basically, he was in Santa Monica at a friend's house, and I walk in and I see all of these paintings of these octopi, and he's like, sometimes you just need to make some stupid paintings of some octopuses, Yeah. And I was just like, that is so incredible, because I think, like, to your point, talking about this self-seriousness of being like an artist and stuff, like, I don't know. I think we can like get in our heads a lot of the times about like identity and who we are as people and as artists, and like you were saying, like what is our contribution and that sort of a thing, right? And also something else that comes to mind that I brought up on the podcast before, but Phil Glass, he said in an interview, it's not about finding your style. Like that's not the most important thing. It's about being able to break out of it. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, that's so true. And in relation to the way that I think with, my photography, for instance, like I feel like I have I feel like I know what my voice is within the medium. Right. And I feel comfortable with that, but now I'm exploring writing and I feel like I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You know?
Which is amazing. It's a humbling experience, right?
It's incredibly humbling. But I think like when I was a kid, I would jump into things and I would just like put my heart and soul into it, skateboarding and music and like writing and all of these things. And I think like as we become adults, we kind of have to unblock that side where we tell ourselves like, oh, you can't do that, or, because it's not you, or I don't know, just some like this bullshit that kind of like we conjure up in our brains for some reason, right?
I think yeah, like what you're saying when you're youthful, when you're young, especially let's just say with the children, like you throw yourself into skating, I threw myself into playing guitar. I guess I just don't know how much ambition is involved at that early age. It's like there's just something pure and joyful about it that
Yeah.
um yeah, I think regaining access to that state is so cool. I think it's also very healthy and awesome that you're doing. You switch away from what your primary medium is and engage in something that you aren't a master of, and that can then inform what your primary practice is.
Yeah. No, totally.
I believe in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's also, that's why I like seeing you do these visual art pieces too. Like, I think, yeah, it's like that playfulness. And I also think, I think I saw this, that you posted something about this, but were you thinking about getting your MFA in, for visual art?
So I really would like to do that. I never completed my BFA.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have tried very hard to get into any kind of post grad program, but I've been bounced hardcore from everywhere. And so I applied to some undergrad programs and was accepted, but I've decided that at this time it doesn't make sense for me to pursue an undergrad in fine art.
Yeah.
I may reconsider that, but as I went through the application process and visiting school, I in the environment there, I didn't feel that it was right for me where I am at this time as an artist. I would like to be in an academic setting, but trying to avoid sounding self-important and douchey right now.
I understand.
I think I'm a little old and far down the road to be going back to the beginning of the fine art thing, because I have always been pursuing visual arts alongside music my entire life. I actually wanted to be a painter before I wanted to play music. So it's hard for me I thought that it could work to go back, but I think I'm just a little old and a little far into what I'm already doing as a job to go. I don't know. I'm not above it. That's all I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Oh, you mean going into getting your BFA as opposed to the MFA? Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to get an MFA. I just don't think that I haven't found a program yet that would consider like anything I've done in my career to count as an undergrad, and I didn't graduate. So
yeah.
That's where I'm at with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are residencies and things I could do. There's one at the Burren in Ireland that I'm interested in. I really want to figure out a way to do something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have like just stacks of journals with writing and drawing like intermixed within them?
Oh yeah. I have an entire shelf of those.
Yeah. From like years and years and years and years.
From the teen years, the childhood years, all the way till now. The one thing I've learned, I think journaling is I don't keep a diary, but like journaling ideas. And the one thing I've learned from it as I've gotten older is the compositional notebooks are just as good, have bigger pages, and are much cheaper than any other
the moleskins.
So,
yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's just like you can see that there's like it starts with little moleskins when I enter my 20s.
Yeah.
bigger moleskins, and then it just starts compositional notebooks.
Yeah, yeah. You can get them at $1 anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I highly recommend
yeah.
those. Yeah, but this project, so with Dowsing Voice, I'll just go back to it and say that because without the context of the music, I think a lot of people know me for like traditional singer-songwriter kind of, we can just throw it in the general arena of like
Mhm.
alternative folk rock, whatever, contemporary adult, whatever
Uh-huh.
it is. Um, that this album is largely driven by vocal improvisation, and there is no official language. There are no lyrics. It's all intuited,
Mm.
um,
Yeah.
channeled, quote unquote, vocalizations.
Mhm.
And what I was trying to do was go rediscover the voice, like remake myself in a way without the boundary and pressure of having to write lyrics and write songs. The electric guitar series is about spontaneity and improvisation. So the first album is guitar work that was, I wrote the whole album while in a van on tour with Red Sparrows. I had a little like battery powered electric guitar. I plugged straight into a computer and just looked out the window and was playing. So I kind of wanted to re-enter that
Stream of consciousness.
the stream of consciousness, and I just became super influenced by the landscape of Wales, also the mythology. um there's this really weird book,
What is it called?
the Mabinogion.
Mabinogion.
Trying to understand and speak Welsh is, I'm never going to get there, but this is their like poetic Edda, I guess, kind of.
Hmm.
It's a lot of the Arthurian legend type stuff comes from here. Very out there stories, fantasy. God, what am I? Magical fairy tales,
Yeah.
essentially. And so there's like the way that being in that landscape, you can very much feel how there's one foot in this pagan tradition and there's one foot in this Christian world. Even with this, so this is a place behind me. I have this hanging photo I took of a well. They have a lot of sacred wells. Water is just coming up out of the ground, and that's believed to be a portal between the worlds.
It's
So
fascinating.
there's this other world where the spiritual realm, where the gods and the dead and all these other weird, fairy folk live, and they travel between worlds through places like this. And people go to these places, and you'll see like more pagan symbols, but then you'll also see Christian things. People pray. A lot of this particular well has a church built just over here that's abandoned, but also has water just welling up out of it. And people will come and make offerings, and they'll pray here, and they'll ask to be healed. Each well has like a specific significance, or is tied to a saint, or tied to it. Like, this is the well where you go if you have issues with your sight. This is the one where you go if you have arthritis, and So I was really fascinated and transported by this concept of a portal to another world, and also how this older Celtic myth and legend sits underneath this like present day Christianity, and how they kind of influence each other. And I got carried away with these like divine feminine beings, and that was the pathway I took to kind of rediscover my own voice. And that cleared the path to then writing Engine of Hell, which is such a big departure from my other work. I needed to just kind of get a cleansing of my being and my mind. So I don't know that I would call any of the music on Dowsing Voice good or bad. It is almost like a ritual.
It definitely feels that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I liked hearing about how, gosh, what was the name of the band? I think Shape of Despair.
Shape of Despair.
Yeah, and you were talking about their album Monotony Fields.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to tie these two things in together. These so essentially, like, I think you were talking about how that album in particular gave you permission to explore hopelessness.
Hmm.
And but it also seems like the creation or going to Wales and like sort of like creating this ritual for yourself that you turned into an album also created that as well. This sort of, or allowing yourself to create that portal to, I mean, to speak about something so honest. Is that correct?
I think just like it was a really powerful way to change, to do something alchemical within my own brain and
Yeah.
my own approach to music, and also I guess manipulating my identity,
Mhm.
forcing some kind of evolution.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know that evolution would be the right word. Maybe just um a transmutation from one thing to another. Uh, a way of divorcing myself from who I had been,
Mm.
um, and using magic. There's a lot of magic I think that's just accessible in that world, at least to me. And whether it's in my mind or it is real, it doesn't really matter. Um, and so then there's this whole visual world with this, all this visual art I made after coming back, trying to really again understand what had happened there for me and what I was doing with it. And okay, the singing really is coming from the voice of this goddess who is the goddess of the night sky. And what does that look like? Um,
Mhm.
it gave me a reason to go to my studio every day, and I was excited about it. It was visually stimulating. There's so much color in the work. A lot of what I do is very gray. I think that would be a word I would use to describe my music, and almost my personal baseline as a human being. What I experience emotionally on a day to day is very gray. It takes a lot for me to continually needle myself into being interested, engaged, in gratitude, and in fascination of what's around me. I can sink very quickly into just an apathy that's a very gray, plodding, bogged down kind of thing. And so this project was like, it was just so bursting with color and childlike materials, construction paper, hot glue, getting into back into embroidery thread and textile, and building little dioramas and making sets, and then doing photography, which again is like not something I'm known for, but I've had an interest in it. It was all a way to sidestep the central themes of my identity up until then, and gave me a very real way to escape the COVID stuff. I mean, I was locked down in Kentucky and I was not happy there at the time.
Yeah.
It was an escape in so many ways. And I got to create a fantasy world based on, some stuff I experienced over in Wales.
Mm.
And it was fun.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely see that. I mean, the way that you describe it, like the sort of childlikeness and that kind of like disregarding the self-seriousness and having fun and the playfulness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's like a big theme of rebirth and all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I,
wanted to talk about the cover album of the album, which is, I was talking about this at the opening, where because on the cover that's a self portrait and I'm
yeah.
covered in blood. It's red and I have my hair is wrapped around my neck, and
Is it
it's
actual blood?
no. Is
Okay.
it? Is it not? Is it the blood of Christ when you take the communion? I don't know. No. Actually,
I like that. I like
I
that
just
perspective.
threw away I just threw away all the blood yesterday, but that image is almost 2 years old. But the idea of it, like when people see that, it's not like Carrie, it's supposed to be the moment of rebirth, and there's this like umbilical sort of moment with the hair and this very intense portrait, which is like the awakening of the new self and the new language, which is because there is no language on the album. Anyway, it's the project's all over the place and it's so hard to talk about and describe because it's like, is it a book? Is it visual art? Is it an album? Should it have been a short film? I don't know, but I'm just kind of glad that it's been put to rest now so I can stop talking about it. It served a purpose for me and I'm glad that it is out there.
Yeah. Well, I can tell like the kind of like joy of you talking about it. I guess it's kind of hard to contextualize certain things that are created, because it's like hard to put words into something that's more of like a feeling.
I guess with this stuff, I need to get better at talking about what I'm doing. I think that like so much of, I've never been good with words and I've never had a legible artist statement in writing that made any sense. It's something I need to work on. I think when there's a strong concept, it should be easy to talk about it. It just, to me, it's an indication that I lack a true understanding of what my art is about.
But I think that's I kind of think that's fine because that's part like you're discovering certain things within yourself.
This is why I can't go to art school because I just wouldn't be able to hack. I wouldn't be able to hack it.
I don't know about that.
I think that so much of it is being able to articulate clearly what it is that you're doing.
Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to get at is the essence of truth, right?
But we can never know what that is, right?
I know, but but when you can see it, I feel like you can see it and you can feel it. Like, okay, so speaking about your artwork, Engine of Hell, like I listened to that album so many times and just like I can feel all of your pain.
Well, right, okay.
In that album,
Good. That's
no,
great.
I mean, no, but like
that's what it's an honest, and I made that record with a lot of conviction. So
yeah,
it's not an abstract concept. It's just like a poetic retelling of actual events.
yeah, exactly. So essentially, it's like if you're not, I guess I would rather feel that in someone's music or whatever artwork and them not being able to like say specifically like A to Z exactly what it means and exactly what it's about. I rather feel that as opposed to someone just giving me an explanation of to what it is. Dude,
right.
I guess
okay.
that's what
so
I'm
like
trying
the cerebral kind of stuff that comes with a lot of. I guess it happens more with art, with visual art than music. I think music is just allowed to be just more of an expression without needing all of that context. I'm the same way. Just to be fair, like I think I'm just saying all this stuff because I drank too much coffee. I really personally, I love to hear something that just hits with that catches me off guard and allows me to be in touch with my own feelings again. Like I love 40 Watt Sun. Everything that Patrick Walker does. There's just something about the quality of his writing, and there's so much weight, conviction, and honesty in his music that it brings me to tears to hear it. And there's value in that for me because, like I said, I think the plodding grayness, that everyday world uniform of grayness that I wear, it cracks that in half and like lets the actual fleshy beating heart stuff kind of happen again,
Totally. Yeah. But also from an audience perspective, like listening to that album specifically, well, also just listening to your whole body of work, but it also, I'm going to speak for myself, it makes me feel like less lonely.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah.
I like to hear that.
Because it's just so honest. And I think like, just personally, I've struggled with, I have a background. I used to be a Christian, like when I was young, you know?
Okay.
And so I think like kind of fucks with your brain your brain a bit, you know, this sort of like um not wanting to be like socially ostracized for being different and that sort of a thing, you know. Have you ever read Liddy Yuknovich's book called Misfits Manifesto?
No, but I'm gonna write it down.
I think you might like that book. It definitely
Okay.
felt like she just draws from her experience, and she says essentially what the thesis is, you know, like she's fucked up a lot in her life, or what people on the outside would be consider like, you know, fucking up, like, you know, getting DUIs, or, you know, getting fired as a professor at a college, and how that a lot of people want some sort of explanation, like a moment of transcendence where you transcend over like something, a hurdle or something like that. And she paints this picture where it's much more complicated than that. You know, it's essentially she's saying like, I'm the person who I am. And she gives different examples of other people that are like what she calls misfits, right? That try to find catharsis in certain ways. And she uses writing example because she's a writer. But I thought it was a cathartic book for me to hear. And it kind of goes back to that idea of like not feeling lonely in the
Mm.
world. And I think that's what the power of art can do.
That's what it does for me, I feel, when I find myself affected by art and I identify and I feel less lonely.
Me too. Yeah.
Loneliness is brutal.
Yeah. Oh wait, actually, can I read you this quote that I found about loneliness, and
Yeah.
it really was comforting. Let me see if I can find it. Wait for it. Let's see.
As a side note, I think you would really like Mizmor. Um,
Yeah.
this is a project that started, well, it is about the the artist losing their faith. They grew up intensely Christian
Okay.
and coming to terms with there is no God for this person.
Yeah.
Um, that was really shattering to their world. It's doomy black metal, and all of it
Okay.
is sort of spawned from that place of origin. And then it, you know, his last full length, he talks about Camus and
Okay.
Sisyphus and all this other stuff. And
Oh.
it's really great. It might really strike a chord with you. Did you
Miss
find
Moore?
Ms. Moore? I'll send you
Ms. Moore. Okay. Cool,
the
cool.
link.
Okay,
Did
that
you
sounds
find the
good.
quote?
I did. I was able to find it. So it's from this I guess she's a writer, but it's basically this meditation podcast that I've been listening to where she just gives a bunch of different sort of meditations. It's called Meditation Oasis, and the person's name's Mary Maddox. And I was listening to her meditation on loneliness, and this is where it came up.
Okay, I'm writing this down.
Okay. In loneliness, there can be a deep sadness and a longing for connection. You can also feel anxious if you're not feeling connected with others. The feeling of loneliness is amplified if we feel that there's something wrong with our current situation. Remember that loneliness is a reflection of our capacity for connection and a normal human experience. In fact, you can think of loneliness as a doorway to connection.
I like that.
Yeah, it was really comforting. I was like, oh man, I have to stop this meditation and write that one down. This is a good one. Yeah. I guess like, God, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, it's kind of like art finds you, you know,
Right.
but I truly, I believe that because, yeah, it's just something about it. And then we kind of find our people along the way. And if anything's beautiful about living, I think it's that being able to find people that you can connect with and find some sort of meaning in the sludge.
Yeah. I and I think that it's okay Like, even if that is an artist that you connect with that is not even alive anymore. Like, and I keep talking about her, but I'm just obsessed with Olivia Lang. Like, I read her books and I feel less lonely.
Mm,
I listen to these albums of these artists and I feel less lonely. I feel connected, even though I don't know if there's something valuable to that we don't have a real life friendship, but I can listen to the words of these other people and know that there's something about our essence that is in harmony.
mm,
And I feel less
yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
Um, that's beautiful, I guess. But yeah,
No, I like that. I like that. No, I mean, I'm curious. I mean, speaking of this, like, do any films like come up in your brain that I guess some sort of like not inspirational films, but
okay. Well, I can like there's a Wings of Desire, Wim Wenders.
oh, okay, yeah.
That
I've
film
actually never seen that
influenced.
film. I haven't
Oh, you
seen it.
should watch it. It's visually stunning,
Yeah.
and it describes humanity in a beautiful way. And I mean, it's set in Berlin.
Mhm.
The I think just Wim Wenders has this way of doing that, just describing
Yeah.
being human. And it's from the perspective of an angel. So this angel walks around just observing
Mm.
people's thoughts, their internal dialogues. You know, he's wandering the streets, and the whole first half hour of that film is like just so poetic and beautiful. That really influenced. It was the key reference for the video that I made, Return.
Mm.
Um, so that film is very inspirational. I would watch that. I would watch that now.
Mm.
I love films,
Me too.
but I've kind of gotten to a place where I've just been like watching TV, and I only watch one show, and I've been watching
What's
it for
that?
a couple of years. It's called Midsummer Murders. It's a British
I haven't seen.
TV like
I haven't seen
crime
that. Yeah.
procedural. Every episode's like an hour and 40 minutes long.
Mm.
And it's like a psychic security blanket for me.
Mm.
I know exactly what's going to happen because I've seen every episode like 20 times.
Wow.
So it's just something that I have on. And I kind of stopped watching films and shows that are new. I just have the same repetitive playing this show over and over again. And it might be unhealthy. I feel like I actually believe these people in the show are real, and that hearing their voices is calming to me. Maybe it's just a coping mechanism, like being alone in COVID.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'll just hang out with the people on Midsummer Murders and this really weird British crime show.
Yeah.
There's all these quaint villages that they're in, and
Oh.
then they have the beautiful like Foley. There's like foxes in the background screaming and like birds. And so I don't know why I'm trying to justify having a strange obsession with this really weird show, but
Hmm.
I need to push myself to getting back to watching films.
That reminds me of. I mean, I just heard this. It's more or less a. I mean, it's an actual show. I think it's this like Swedish show, but I was listening to it on about it on Invisibilia,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called Slow TV, and it's essentially just 24 hours of the same scene.
I love this concept.
like a train ride. Uh,
That's amazing. That's beautiful.
and and it just I something about that, about being forced, like not necessarily forced, but you're just sitting there and observing the moment. But it's interesting how the perspective changes from when you can see it on TV and it's somewhere else. Maybe this speaks to like romanticization of wanting to be in another place or something. But then something that I also think about too, and that I recently watched. Have you seen Stalker recently?
Okay, so I was thinking about that earlier when I was talking about the grayness, and
The room.
The tendency towards like
Yeah.
concrete setting, right? When he talks about in that film how to be young is to be limber in this in your essence, and that as you age you become rigid.
Hmm.
And I haven't seen it super recently, but within the last few years.
Hmm. Yeah.
Why do you bring up Stalker?
Well, I was just thinking about that in contrast to this other thing where they're completely different. But I mean, Tarkovsky forces you to just look at something for a very long time and then it transforms as the camera pushes in or as it just
Yeah,
like,
I wish there would just be more post narrative work. Like I'm sign me up. I'll even go out there and make it myself, but I think I want more like full length films and series that are just with no characters necessarily, or very unconventional characters, meaning like maybe the wind is a character, or we don't, it just doesn't have like the Western story as much. Like looking out a train window, I would watch that show. I would
yeah,
watch that show for hours,
yeah.
you know?
There's some there. Yeah, there's just something comforting about. I mean, perhaps it talks about this world that we live in that's just riddled with distractions and
I've thought a
yeah.
lot about why is TV and why are films like so, I have to resist the urge to turn it on a lot. And
Mhm.
why is it so, why are we so compelled to look at it? One thing I think is that, well, for one, you can see everything so clearly
Mhm.
and it's contained.
Mhm.
So, our experience in the physical world is like, it's surrounding us, but this kind of condenses it into a perfectly contained little box. And then, I don't know, let's not go there. We should get back to where we were coming from. But
No, I mean,
I'm glad,
I
I'm
like
fascinated
exploring
to
that
know
stuff.
like what did people do before? I guess there was like, looking at the fire.
I feel like most people are probably a lot happier
You
pre
think?
pre
I don't
TV.
think so.
You don't think
I
so?
think no.
Well, I
Mm-mm.
mean, that could also be because of, I mean, a lot of different reasons, a lot of like humanitarianly, like racism and just a lot of restrictive sort of reasons. And perhaps I'm just romanticizing about this pre-technological era.
Right, like maybe there was a moment like post-industrial revolution, but pre-modern technology where like medicine was more available, products were more affordable, so people's like quality of life bumped up.
Mm-hmm.
But then it wasn't, we didn't have I have no idea. I
Like,
think that it's like
yeah,
our probably our lot that we will always romanticize what it was like pre-internet, right?
yeah, or pre everything. Yeah, just
Let's
like
see, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And like I'm so glad that we could do the video because it feels like we're hanging out.
it does. It definitely
Which is
does.
gonna make my day so much better. I hope it makes your day better. But I love my dog. She's over there staring at me,
I want to
but
see. I want to see your dog.
yeah, it's not quite the same as having a
Oh.
human friend. Red, do you want to come over here?
That's a
Come
really
here.
cute dog. Is that like a what kind of dog is that? Like a
She's a
retriever?
pit. She's a pit mix.
Oh, okay.
Red, come here. She's a tripod, so she's missing
Oh,
one of her front legs. Come here, Bob. She's like, no.
she's like,
No.
no,
You're doing that screen talking thing where
yeah,
you talk at
I'm
the
pretty cool
screen.
on this couch here.
Like, let me know when we're going to go to the dog park.
Yeah.
You want to go to the park? Do you want to go outside? Oh,
Now she gets up.
the tail's wagging.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, I'll let you go do your thing at the dog park, but I guess like generally I end the conversations on a bit of advice for people, for artists,
Okay.
creatives, and such. So I was wondering what sort of advice you would want to give to our listeners.
Oh, I don't know. I guess like I don't know about advice. I guess it depends on what they're listening for. I have no idea. I'm not an authority on anything. I think like staying open-minded, anything is possible. Not meaning like your hopes and dreams are possible, but the possibility of a truth that's outside your like instant reach and understanding
Mm.
is a possibility. And I don't know, remain interested, I guess. Like that's what I'm trying to do right now. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Mm. I think
Is
that's
that does that count?
yeah, that counts. I think that's sound advice. Remain interested. Yeah.
Remain interested, not just interesting. Like stay interested in others and in the world, I guess.
Yeah.
As much as it's something I have to force myself to do. What about you? What's your advice? What advice do you have for me and for other artists out there listening?
Other artists, your pup.
Yeah.
Yeah. do uh go do paw drawings.
Paw
Yeah,
drawings.
yeah, yeah. Other advice. Oh goodness.
What have you learned as an artist that you think is something that you wish someone had told you or that you could pass on?
I suppose something that I've just been thinking about is just being like brutally honest. Like continue to be honest with yourself about your intentions, about essentially everything, and if that's uncomfortable for people, then that's okay. But at least you can be honest with yourself.
Yeah, it's a lot harder than it sounds.
Yeah,
There's
totally.
some very strange factors at work inside that can be mm, put there that
Yeah,
we don't necessarily want.
yeah.
But anyway, I think that's really good advice.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for having me. And
Yeah.
sorry I talked so much and it didn't necessarily all make sense, but that's what
I
happens.
think you I think you made total sense. And
I was just on the phone with Dave Elich earlier, and he says hello.
oh, cool. I love
Yeah,
I
he's
love
one of my
Dave.
oldest friends.
I think wait, did you grow up like in the same town or something or
I grew up in LA, very close to where he lives now, but no, he's from Sebastopol. When he came to LA, we met and we actually played in a band together when I think I was like 20 or 21 years
oh,
old.
that's cool.
So, yeah, he's one of my oldest friends. He rules.
Dave's yeah, Dave's a kind soul. He's
He's
a,
got a lot of wisdom.
he does.
Yeah.
That guy reads quite a lot too. Yeah, I love Dave. He's
Yeah,
good.
he's always turning me on to something fascinating.
Yeah,
Love talking to him.
me
We can
too.
just rap about different ideas about life. But
Yeah.
anyway, all right. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
Have a nice time in the bay.
All right, I will.
Bye.
Take care. All right. Music for the podcast is by Rarebit, aka Justin Dosher Hopkins. YouTube and creative support is by Tyler Scully. Thanks so much for tuning in. See you next time.